Hi, this is Kimberly Reuter, business advisor and supply chain expert, and welcome to my podcast, The Morning Mood. Today, we have a special episode for you. This is our first episode in our series called The Math Behind the Magic, the finance of e-commerce and retail. And with us today, we have our guest, Steve Haas. He was with us before on Greatest Lessons Learned. Steve, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be back.
Thank you for being here. And as you guys know, Steve is a finance whiz. He has run finance for all kinds of retail and e-commerce operations, and he knows the ins and outs of how finance works. So to kick us off today, we are going to talk about the basics, which are how do retailers make money? What are the ins and outs, the numbers, the profitability, the losses that go on and to make it all happen? So Steve, tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah. So you hear a million things thrown around about gross margin and profitability and all that. And there's definitely nuances to it. In the end, it's not all that complicated. Profitability is ultimately, the difference between what you buy it for and what you sell it for. Now lots of layers under the detail on that.
I was going to say, it's not just that easy, right? There's all kinds of a P&L includes
Sure.
everything down to the electric bill, health insurance, the whole kit and caboodle, right?
Yeah. And I think today it's probably easier just to focus on sort of what we'll call gross margin. Like if I'm a buyer in a category, how profitable am I? Because you're right. There are salaries and rent and, facilities, all that. I don't claim to be a guru in that. I know how, as an individual buying responsibility or a product category in total, or even a whole, retailer, what their gross margin is made up of and kind of the key levers to it. Because like I said, in the end, there just aren't that many. This is sort of the, large scale version of buy low and sell high, but with a lot of nuances to it. It really boils down to like three metrics that matter. I mean, there's markup, which is the difference of what you buy it for and what you intend to sell it at. And then there's markdowns, which is, obviously sort of a reduction in what you thought you'd sell it for. A couple others play into it, like shortage, which is either your employees or your customers stealing from you. A few other small ones, and you kind of get from, top to bottom, a profitability. And it starts out always with markup. The very first number that anybody cares about is markup. And super misconception about that. Everybody says if I buy something for $10 and sell it for 20, that's a 100% markup. Okay.
Right.
There is no such thing as 100% markup. That's a 50.
Oh, back that up.
Yep. That is.
Tell us more about that. Tell us more about that.
The simple, stupid math. And I remember from like day one when being a trainee coming out of college, retail minus cost divided by retail gets you your markup. So the formula leads you to, you can't ever have 100% markup. If you buy something for $10 and sell it for 50, you have an 80% markup. You will never get to 100. So really simple. The first thing everybody looks at is markup. And it is like, what do I hope to sell it for compared to what I paid for it? If you sold every piece for exactly what you thought you would sell it for, then your markup equals your gross margin. There's nothing that comes off of it. Now, no retailer has ever lived in that world. That's what Nirvana looks like, and it never happened in retail.
Right. So in order for that to just stop right here for our listeners. So in order for that to happen, in order for a buyer to buy perfectly and sell through everything, they would have had to predict every single size and color that was going to walk into that store, and no one went without. I think that's the thing that we're going to talk about a little bit later about, is that there's this concept of not selling out, which is actually good.
Yeah. I mean, I think buying is this balance of, it's like the three little bears. I don't want to buy way too much and I don't want to buy too little. It's the balance between sales and profitability. If all I care about is profitability, it's super easy. I don't have to sell very much. And if all I care about is sales, I can give it away and my margin will be zero.
Right.
So it's finding that sweet spot where sales and profitability intersect and you're like, I got the most sales possible at the highest level of profitability, and they pull directly on each other. Anytime you eat the brand, when you see a runaway brand in its early stages, you will see them with fat margins and huge sales. because they just can't get enough. They're probably not keeping up with demand. When we
Right.
talk about, so when Lululemon got started, I'm sure their margins were through the roof. They could charge whatever they wanted. They never discounted it, and they were leaving customers unhappy because they were running out.
Yep.
When you move into a mature retailer, there isn't limitless demand, and you have to find a balance because there's probably competition that you're thinking about from a profitability perspective, and you're trying to protect market share. So all of these things line up to, how do I buy stuff that I can sell in a way that kind of matches my financial model and meets my customers' needs? That's the nirvana you're looking for. Now, really easy to articulate and damn near impossible to actually ever achieve. So, well, hasn't worked out.
As anybody who does any shopping, I'm a chronic shopper. I can't help it. I've been shopping since I think I was shopping right out of the womb. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah.
Um, that was my pastime as a child. I'm a chronic shopper. I can't help it. I just love to see what's going on in the market, like what's happening and who's selling and who's not selling, and everything that you're talking about. We see it, but we don't actually recognize what's happening. Like
No.
you talk about the runaway brand, right? That like Ivy Park comes to mind, like when Beyonce put out her I mean, when you and I are both at Nordstrom when that came out, we could not keep that shit on the shelves. You could not keep it. But 6 months later, we were like, "Woof, we got a lot of Ivy Park." We got a lot of
Retailers, there tend to be no normal reaction. It's just varying daily
Yes.
overreaction. So, Ivy Park, pull a number out of the sky. We bought 10,000 units and hope to sell them. We sell 10,000 in 20 minutes. So
Yeah,
the next thing you do, you don't go, I think I could sell 20. You go, I could sell a million. So
I
you
got
already you're
100,000.
swimming in shit and you're marking it down. Like, so it's never, the best thing that can happen to a retailer is they can't get their hands on everything they want. Because usually they're the most overly optimistic group of people you'll ever meet. A buyer never met a product that isn't the next pet rock and isn't going to be incredible. Just ask them. So that's the hard part is, you never, especially today where everyone's dying for market share and you see some glimmer of something that could work. You don't want to be the conservative person in the room going, I think we could sell twice what we sold last week. It's the person who goes, I think we could sell 10 times, that everybody
Yeah.
applauds. But mathematically, that's not often the case. There aren't many Ivy Parks. There aren't many iPhones. There aren't many Lulu leggings in their brand new stage. It just,
Yeah.
and making it even worse is the customer loyalty is dramatically less than it used to be. So, what they love about you today, they may find somebody new and hot and different tomorrow. So this idea of a stable base and a customer who keeps coming back to you, this next generation doesn't have customer loyalty. They're looking at what excites me. What did I see on Instagram? Who's got the best price today? They don't care whether an online retailer is profitable. They don't care if it's gone in 6 months. I just know I can get a
No.
deal today.
Yeah,
So,
because 'cause they're not buying for longevity too. I think that's the other thing too.
no.
And it's interesting because when we're gonna take some history lessons as we go along in our podcast here. So when you and I both started at Nordstrom, what, close to 10 well, you were already at Nordstrom when I started. So this was 10 years ago or so. I can't remember exactly when I started. Um, when I started, Nordstrom still had the model of we have one sale a year. We don't need customer loyalty. We don't need we don't need any of that stuff. We have customer loyalties. Our customer always shops with us. Our customer's not going anywhere. We have one sale a year and we will not discount. Do you remember that? I mean, there were rounds and rounds of executive, very heated discussions, I will call those, about sales and whether or not how are we going to compete with the Macy's of the world.
Yeah, I think yes. And today they're very different.
Yeah.
First of all, there's sale product online every day at Nordstrom. They will
Yep.
have several national sales a year.
Yes.
Um, and they've moved to, from a competitive pressure standpoint, a couple of things happened. The noise got very loud in the
Yeah.
marketplace, louder than it had ever been. Certain categories that were sacred became not sacred, meaning we
Yeah.
see started running cosmetics on sale. That was
Yeah.
like unheard of 10 or 15.
That's unheard of.
Yeah. So now, I don't know, 3 or 4 times a year, Macy's runs all their cosmetics at 20% off. Well, you can't
Yeah.
do that. The customer will
Yeah.
buy it from Macy's. It's a commodity. There's no service around that. And then
Mm.
you've got this younger generation that just said, I actually don't care that you've got beautiful stores with piano players and somebody friendly who greets me. It's about price. In fact, I don't want that shit. I'm less likely to buy there. Those people turn me off.
They annoy me.
I don't engage with a Starbucks barista. I order on the app because I don't like people. So when I get to Nordstrom, the worst thing you can do is hitting me over the head with a commission salesperson who's in my face. So what,
Right.
so Nordstrom looks at it and they're like, well, we probably need to stick our toe in this promotional water. And like everybody, it probably happened one day when things were a little tough. Someone went, all right, let's
It
try
was.
it. And it's a little like trying heroin for the first time. You
It
can't
was.
get it off it. And by the way, when you try it once and you do it, we're just going to do it one time a year. Okay. Well, suddenly one
Yeah.
becomes twice a year. And then suddenly it's
Yeah.
quarterly. And then you're
Yeah.
against the tough month. So you added that.
Yeah.
I mean, there aren't enough, Macy's has run out of days to put coupons on the calendar. There are
Oh,
no more. They're almost every day.
yeah, Macy's has 365 sales a year.
And
Well, so how if I recall correctly, how Nordstrom actually dipped their toe in the water was that they did price matching. That was their first toe in the water was, "Okay, fine, we'll price match
yeah,
what
no, you're
what the other stores were doing," right? Which was kind of a coupon light, like
well, yeah, what it did, unfortunately, there were a couple of things. So you're right. They always had the stance of, well, we won't be undersold. And you're a
Right.
customer. We view nothing more important than your trust in our ability to be treated fairly. Got it.
Yeah.
If you walk into a store and said Macy's is running a sale today on, I don't care, pick the item, Levi's jeans,
Yeah.
and we don't have them on sale. Old world, they would pick up the phone, they would call the owner of the mall. Hi, I'm interested in Levi's. Do you have them on sale? They'd verify it and they'd honor the price for the customer.
Yeah.
The two things happened all of a sudden. First of all, that was not a good customer experience. Don't make me prove to you what our customers already have seen. And
Yeah.
secondly, then the internet came along. So
Yep.
this was no longer my customer saw it somewhere else. By
They
seeing
saw it
it closer, what
online.
happened is they
Yeah.
stopped telling us they found it somewhere cheaper. They just bought
Yeah.
it somewhere else. So
Yep.
where they used to come in and go, will you price match Macy's? Now they just bought it from Macy's online.
Yeah.
What happened overnight is we realized we were being undercut on price. We had to match major competitors. So yes, put Macy's, Saks, Neiman's, Bloomingdale's, etc. We had
All of them,
product.
yeah, right. Because it wasn't I just went to the store, I got a coupon in the
Nope.
mail. It was
Every
I
day.
was sitting on my computer this morning and I shopped all 10 of your major competitors, and now I know.
And what happened from a brand perspective with vendors is we went from being up on our high horse about we don't want to sell promotions, we don't want to discount, etc. To all of a sudden, when we matched everybody, we became on paper the most promotional retailer in the world because Macy's did it one day, Bloomingdale's another, and Saks on a third. And what did Nordstrom do? All three. Because in our mind, the customer can't differentiate that it's a Saks sale today. They just found it cheaper, and we better be competitive. So that
So we had to be cheaper than all 3 of them now because we haven't been running our own game.
you had to match all three.
Yeah.
I said, so we would say, it's you understand our philosophy. We're passionate about selling brands at full price.
Yep.
We got into very nuanced language because you can't
Yeah.
ever tell a brand what they can sell something for. Uh,
Right.
but we would say our passion is around selling full price product, and we look to partner with brands who share that same value, et cetera, which was code
Right.
for if your shit's on sale somewhere else, we're going to match it, and that's on you. We did not buy a promotional brand. We didn't tend to promote this. You made us do this. You allowed one of our competitors to do it and gave up
Yep.
our choice. And from a
We're not cutting our margin.
no, well, and PS, we expect you to pay for it.
Right.
Yes, we expect you to pay for the discounting because when we bought it, we wouldn't have bought it had that been the deal. And from where Nordstrom sat, it's a really reasonable approach. They weren't buying Liz Claiborne, which has never sold a product at full price in the last 25 years. It's always on sale on a coupon. That didn't align with Nordstrom values. They would never buy that
Right.
brand. They bought brands that presented themselves as full price and where there was an expectation that that would be what they could find in the market. And when that
Yeah.
discounted, Nordstrom's like, well, gloves are off. You're
Yeah.
going to keep us profitable and we're going to match the price. And now you can decide, who do you want to partner with? Do you want it to be Bloomingdale's, who runs a coupon every day? Or do you
Yeah.
want to be Nordstrom, who can deliver you an affluent full price customer and provide an umbrella for your brand? So,
Right.
the Nordstrom approach was a pretty reasonable one, but the market just got messy in a hurry.
The market shifted.
It got messy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It got really messy. So how did this affect so we started off kind of talking about profitability, so gross margin,
Yep.
gross, profit. So how was all this shifted? Because traditional retail, that was what you focused on. I'm gonna buy it for X, I'm gonna sell it for Y,
Yep.
and and X percentage is gonna be sold at a markdown price. It was pretty basic. So we started off talking about how Nordstrom never had sales. That was original model. It was all customer loyalty. We will look after our customer, et cetera, et cetera. And then everything shifted. So e-commerce came along. All of a sudden, I can price shop my Hudson jeans, sit my happy little ass in my chair. I don't have to go anywhere. I can shop the brand. I can shop multiple retailers. I can shop off brand. So everything changed. So how did that impact finance for retail?
It definitely put pressure on margins. Amazing is you haven't seen margins drop since that happened.
I know, and that fascinates me. Why
Really
is that?
haven't. What happened is the burden largely shifted to the vendors. A lot of things would
Ah,
happen. It would be, and this is where the math sort of meets the negotiation part of it is the way you just said it is exactly right. I'm going to buy 10,000 sweaters and I expect to sell 8,000 at a certain price before Christmas. I'm going to sell 2,000 after Christmas at this deep discount and my margin will all come together.
mhm.
Well, over time, as pressures actually to push margin up came into play, the buyers would negotiate a lot of things. They would either say, look, you're going to pay for all the markdowns after Christmas, or more
Right.
likely, I'm going to manage this product in a way that, you and I partner with together. But in the end, whatever happens, you get me to this gross margin. You write a check for the
Right.
difference. Now,
Yes.
that was not really in the Nordstrom playbook.
Right.
Um, for a long time. I mean, they managed the business and they were very nice and they thanked the vendors for the partnership and all that. Well, they were the cheapest date in retail by a lot. And I think
Yep.
that shifted really to become competitive. And I think the market change caused it. And I think bringing in some people from the outside who had seen how you could work with vendors
Right.
changed it a lot.
Changed a lot,
Yeah.
yeah.
So now
We brought in some more e-commerce type, with more e-commerce background, I think was what changed it too.
yes, and I would say, coming in with a Macy's background, I'm looking at the
Mhm.
P&L going, we're not getting any help from the vendors. I'm like, well, they're good part being
Ah.
tens of millions of dollars on the table, which we were.
Yeah.
Um,
And we're gonna get into that a little in another episode, right? We're gonna get into the different models and how different retailers run because it's super interesting when you look at how Nordstrom's model
yep,
versus a Macy's model, totally different
yep,
models.
100%.
Yeah.
And it was on the backs of the vendors. They either pay for markdowns, guarantee a gross margin, take back returns, all these things became almost a price of admission if you're going to be certainly in Nordstrom and most national retailers. The clout they have, it's hard to have a big brand if you don't have one of the 3 or 4 major national retailers. So,
Yep.
it became super consistent. You need to do this, this, and this, and you can either say yes or say no. But if you say no to all of them, they're probably not going to carry your product because enough people are lined up ready to say yes that you're going to be out.
Yeah. I think another really interesting thing that, because we're talking about high level retail and e-commerce financing right now, or finance, not financing. We're not here to tell you how to finance your purchases.
Yeah.
Actually, we're totally against that. The other portion of this that's super interesting was just the price competitiveness of it. We went from a model where literally you had to burn gas to find something. Everything was full price. You occasionally got something on a sale. And then, I'm talking through like my decades of shopping history. And then all of a sudden we had outlet malls. And then that's another thing that you guys are going to talk about. All of a sudden there was outlet malls.
Yep.
And everybody had to have an outlet mall. And then all of a sudden manufacturers were making brand stuff for the outlet
You
malls,
know.
right? So it actually became an off, what do they call that? They have a name for it. It's like a off brand, off cycle. What do they call that when they start making stuff for?
Oh, I know. I mean, it's the most disingenuous thing in the world that you walk over
Oh,
a
totally.
Gap outlet store and you look at the label and it says Gap outlet on it. I'm like, what
Yeah.
the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
Like this was
Yeah. What
like
just happened? I thought this was, yeah.
product that was too much of left over, not
Right, it was supposed to be
yeah,
exhaust.
exactly. So
Yeah, and now
yeah,
we get into private label.
you're right.
Yeah,
Nothing happens in secrecy anymore. It used to be unless the
yeah,
customer is willing to drive from 10 places and find a deal. Now you're right. They sit in their sweats in bed and can find the cheapest price. And at that point, if you want it from Nordstrom because you want a Nordstrom box under the tree and they haven't matched it yet, all you got to
yeah.
call customer service and they'll probably override the price and give you the product for that.
They'll give it to you
Yeah,
anyway.
I mean,
Yeah,
because they can't afford not to.
yeah.
No, they do.
And the other thing that shifted too for Nordstrom too was we used to have down in Arizona that outlet for all of the
Last chance.
stuff.
Yep,
Last chance.
yep. There's now
Yep.
2 of those.
And oh, really?
They didn't close that one. They opened a second one because the demand was so compelling. Yep, yep. And what
Do they still
that's
operate them?
that's the that is the underbelly of retail. That is when it went from Nordstrom, it went to Nordstrom Rack, it went through clearance at Nordstrom Rack, and finally they're just like, screw it. I will almost pay the customer to come get this. And it's a
Yeah, that's last
weird
chance.
bottom feeder part of retail with like lines out the door to get $5 designer shoes that have been worn before. I mean, but it's all part of the retail ecosystem. In the end,
It was started.
somehow,
Yes.
so you got to get rid of something. And,
Yeah,
there is
it
a
has
price
to
for
go.
everything. You ultimately just have to find what that last terminal customer will pay for it and go, okay, I had to sell the last 1,000 cashmere sweaters at $4 because I couldn't find a home for them.
Yeah, because we finally had to get rid of them,
Yeah.
and that gave birth to a big resale market too. So then all of a sudden now we're reselling it.
Poshmark, all
Um,
those things are flourishing. Yes.
yeah, that's what started the whole thing. But yeah, so back in the day, the original clearance was Nordstrom in Phoenix, Arizona, or
Yeah.
outside Phoenix, Arizona. Uh-huh.
Lap,
Last chance.
yeah.
Last chance.
Yeah.
And that's where everybody went to get their goodies.
Yeah.
But now you can do all this online. It's on eBay. All of this is available to you whenever you want it now.
Yeah, I mean, you can find anything anywhere and never really have to worry of was there a better place. I mean, there's
Yeah.
pricing tools for consumers, there's all sorts of things. And
Yeah.
as a retailer, it makes you really you realize quickly you have to be competitive because the customer
Yeah.
loyalty, like we said, loyalty is gone. Your Hudson,
Yeah.
they're $30 cheaper. I may love Nordstrom, but I'm buying them where they're cheaper. And
Mhm.
more importantly, how do I just stay out of that fight? I don't want to play that game. Nordstrom, that's the beauty of their model is they can serve an elevated customer who isn't scraping on eBay to save $4. They're willing to
Right.
pay for the experience and a curated assortment and good shopping environment,
Right.
and there aren't that many of them, but if you own that
Right.
market, it's still a big market.
Yeah.
So just don't get in the sandbox where everyone's throwing sand in each other's face. Just don't play the game. And that's
Yeah.
their goal is I want full price brands who passionately want to sell that and serve that customer. And
Yeah.
if you deviate too far from that, then we're probably not a great fit for each other. And that's okay.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. That was their model, and it's been working for 100 years or so.
Yep. And they can't change it because other people will out promote and out discount them all day long. That is not what Nordstrom
Yep.
is good at. They're good at lots of things. That's not a game they want to play in.
That's not what they're good
Well,
at. I can tell you they get taken to the bank every time they do it.
no, they shouldn't do it. I mean, that's just a race to the bottom at that point.
It
If
is.
you're
It really is.
coupon Macy's, you're gonna lose. Their customer,
Yeah.
and what happens too is if you get into that fray, you alienate your core customer who's like, that is not what I want you for. You suddenly feel
Right.
like a Macy's, you're not special anymore. I don't want to
Right.
be standing in line, somebody next to me haggling over the discount on a coupon. That's
Yeah, who's like stacking up her coupons, right? Who's got one of her phones? She's got one out of the mailer. She's got the one from last week. Like, why can't I use that one too?
I don't want to
Yeah,
have
it's
I don't want to have
experience.
to work to get a good price at Nordstrom. I trust you,
Yeah.
you fairly. Don't change that. So
Yeah.
they've got a really special thing, and they're very good at defending it. I would say over time they have evolved to be competitive and relevant without caving on the core part of their model, which is
Yeah.
full price. And they sell. I would say Nordstrom probably sells more full price product than just about any retailer in this country.
Yeah. Because they stuck to their guns.
Yeah, I mean, and they look at, there's tons of reporting internally at the brand level of like
Oh, yeah.
what percent of your product is sold at full price and not. And when you exceed the threshold, there starts to be discussion that this needs to change. Otherwise, we're probably not a great fit. And give
Yeah.
them a
This
world
isn't the
card
brand for us.
because they're not willing to say, well, it's with very few exceptions, stupid commodity things like Calvin Klein underwear, they'll play the promotional game all day. Everybody does
Oh,
know way
yeah.
to sell it. Unless you're somebody who's printing gold for them or a commodity the customer needs, the answer, if you're a Macy's buyer, is, yeah, we're doing a lot on sale, but they pay for it. My margin comes out okay. At Nordstrom, they say, I don't care. That's not how we want to do business. So
Yeah.
either get it cleaned up or we're probably going to
Yeah.
need to wind it down. And
Yeah. We need it. It's not a good
all credit
partnership.
for them. Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for our first episode of the Math Behind the Magic. Great overview of what goes on with retail finance and e-commerce finance. We're going to get into some of these deeper topics we touched on today. The different models, like how do they work? The full price model versus the coupon model. How does it all wash out in the end? We know all retailers are struggling.
Yeah.
So interesting conversations to come. And thank you, Steve, for making time to chat with us today. Anything you want to leave us with today?
No, we got a bunch of cool stuff to cover in the future, so looking forward to it.
We sure do. Thank you. And thank you, my audience, for being here. And we will chat tomorrow.